Guys, welcome back to the next episode of the Investor Army podcast. We have a great guest on here today. I saw him about 3 years ago speak in Dallas on land trusts. And I think he's a good guest to have on here to talk about that because we have Mr. Land Trust himself, Randy Hughes, on the show today. Randy, how you doing?
Good, Connor.
So you got a lot of information on a topic that a lot of investors want to know about. So I'm glad to have you on here. Grateful to see you today. And I want to kind of dig into the land trust, kind of start out real basic, then move to more advanced in-depth information on it, because I think it can help a lot of people, especially as they start taking title to properties, because there's lots of benefits, as you know. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, because I know a lot of people know who you are, but some people are brand new in the business and they're just starting out, and I think you're someone that they need to listen to.
Okay, thanks. I'm a single-family house investor. That's how I make my living. I don't make my living selling land trust information, but I started buying houses in 1969, which is probably before you were born, Connor, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So I started buying houses when I was in college, and I probably had, 15 houses in my name personally before I woke up to the realization that that was really stupid to title this stuff in my name, that anybody could go to the courthouse and look up the records and see what I owned. They could see what debt was on the property and approximate my net worth. And that made me a target for a lawsuit by anybody and everybody.
Yep.
And so I started researching the topic of how to hold title other than in your own personal name. And I settled on the best way to hold title is through these trusts.
Yep. So what exactly, in basic terms, for someone who's brand new in the business, is a land trust? Because I know a lot of people are kind of like, what's he talking about right now?
Yeah, well, they've probably heard of living trusts. Maybe they have a living trust or their parents have a living trust, which is designed to distribute your assets upon your death. A land trust is a type of living trust exclusive to real estate. So it holds real estate assets only, houses, apartment buildings, commercial structures, notes, mortgages, air rights, mineral rights, anything real estate related would go into a land trust, not just land. And land is kind of a misnomer there. I'd really prefer to just call it a trust or a title holding trust because people misunderstand that. But it's nothing more than a few pieces of paper. It's a trust agreement, which is a contract between the trustee, who holds full legal and equitable title, and the beneficiary, who controls the trust. And there's the key. Most people who know anything about trusts think that a land trust is like most other trusts. And what I mean by that is most trusts are what I call trustee driven, meaning the trustee makes all the decisions on the assets and the distributions out of that trust. That's not the case with a land trust. They are beneficiary driven, meaning the beneficiary makes all the decisions. The trustee can't do anything without written permission from the beneficiary.
Correct.
And that's a big distinction between land trusts and most of the rest of the trusts in the world.
Yep. So can you be your own trustee?
No, it's not a good idea. To my knowledge, there's only one state that even allows that legally, and that's the state of Florida. But for the life of me, I don't know why anybody would want to be their own trustee. It kind of defeats the purpose of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking too. And I've seen it. A lot of people tell me that's what they've been doing lately. And I was just like, I don't even know if you can do that. So I'm glad that you're on here I hope they watch this. I'm going to forward this video to a lot of people and say, hey, look, Mr. Land Trust says, no, don't do that.
There's a principle under the law in all the states except Florida, as far as I know right now. And it's called merging of interests. And what that means is you can't have a contract with yourself. And a trust agreement is a contract between the trustee and the beneficiary. So, how can you be both parties? You can't enter into a contract with yourself.
Yep.
So that's the first problem. The second problem is, even if you could, it'd be stupid to do that because you want your trustee to have a different last name than you. So you have anonymity of ownership.
No, I agree. That's what I was thinking. So who would be the most typical individual if you were to set up a land trust? Do most people become their trustee as a family member, a friend, or an attorney?
Well, I sell a home study course that teaches real estate investors how to create their own trusts. And in that home study course, I have one chapter, a whole chapter on who can be and who should be your trustee. There's a more detailed answer than what I'm going to give you right now. But the short answer is somebody with a different last name and somebody who lives out of the county in which the property is located. That could be a trusted family member. One thing nice about daughters is if they get married and change their last name, they've got a different last name, but yet they still have an incentive to work with the family assets. It could be your attorney. It could be anybody. And if you can't find somebody, it can be a professional trustee that will charge you a couple $100 a year to serve as your trustee.
Okay, great. While we're on this, so when we create a trust, a lot of people, go back and forth on what they should name the trust. Do we name it 123 Main Street Trust? Do we name it after? I know some people name it after the previous homeowner that lived there to kind of even hide what they're doing even more. So what's a good strategy as far as to name the trust?
Well, I have a whole chapter in my home study course on how to name your trust.
Yeah.
How to name it and number it. So that is one of the most fun parts of this relatively boring subject of creating land trust.
Yeah.
Is how to name the trust. But bottom line is there's no land trust registry like there is for LLCs and corporations.
Okay.
You don't have to check on the name before you give your trust a name. Now you can't infringe on copyright. So you couldn't use the Bill Gates Trust or the General Motors Trust, those sort of copyrighted names. But short of that, you can come up with anything you want. And it's my personal philosophy that you should name your trust something intimidating, because there are a whole lot of contingency fee lawyers out there that just troll the waters every day looking for somebody to sue.
Yep.
And if it says mom and pop trust, they're going to sue you.
Yep.
But if the name of your trust is something that implies maybe there's a legal department that might sue you back if you throw some silly lawsuit at them, they'll probably skip that one and go on to the next sucker who's owning real estate in his name and not using a trust.
Yeah, like the Donald Trump Foundation Trust or something like that, right?
Probably shouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not that one, but just for example purposes. Now let's kind of touch about. So I hear a lot of different information, and when people talk about where the trust came from and why it was actually created, you hear it started in Chicago, or some people talk about way back with King Henry back in the old days. What is your take on when the trust came about, and kind of why was it created in the first place?
Well, trusts were created way back in the day of the kings, and the serfs would use them when they got sent off to war by the king to keep the king from stealing their land when they were gone. But that was a long, long time ago in England. Our laws in America they escheat, which means they come over from, they are developed from England.
Okay. And
so the first land trust was formed by Chicago Title for a suburb development in Chicago, Illinois, over 100 years ago. And ever since then, it's promulgated from that point. But yeah, the trusts have a long history, so you don't have to worry that it's, some newfangled something or other where someone's going to steal your property or something.
Yeah. So a lot of politicians, even what was it, Al Capone, they hide their property, they hide what they own, so people can't understand, what they're doing. It basically shields their actions from the public. Now, when I bought your home stay program a few years ago, I went through. I thought it was great. You probably got the best product out there, which is why we had you on here today. Let's kind of run through some of the biggest benefits of a land trust, especially for primarily a new single family investor that's looking to take title and hold property in a land trust. What's probably the number one benefit of having a land trust?
Well, if you don't mind, Connor, before I answer that question, let me back up a minute, because I think sometimes people misunderstand the purpose and the use of these trusts.
Okay.
Not only Al Capone used them, but Barack Obama, his personal residence in the suburbs of Chicago, is in a land trust.
Correct.
So honest people use these trusts, and it's not to take advantage of somebody or deceive somebody, but it is to protect their assets And it's my personal opinion that what you own is none of my business.
Yep.
And what I own is none of your business. And that's the premise that I'm operating under, is that a basic tenet of asset protection is separation of assets and privacy of ownership. And that's what we're doing here. And that's what I teach in detail in that homesteading course. So let's go on to, you're saying, what are the benefits, right?
Yeah, I mean, yep.
I on my website, which we'll give the address here in a few minutes, but on my website, I've got 3 booklets that you can download for free. And one of those booklets is called Reasons to Use a Land Trust. And there are 54 reasons in that booklet to use a land trust. So, it's an hour explanation to answer that question, but let's just hit some of the high points here. First off, from an estate planning standpoint, you avoid probate. And that's really an important thing that you need to look into if you're doing some estate planning. But I like to sell real estate on an installment contract. I like to be the bank, because I can not only make a nice interest rate on my equity, 8, 9, 10% interest on my equity when I sell to somebody on a contract, but I can make arbitrage on my underlying loan. So if I've got a $50,000 loan at 4% at the bank and I'm selling it at 9%, I'm making 5% interest on the bank's money. So that's a great way to make money in this business. The risk involved in selling on a contract is, if you do it under the standard method and the buyer defaults, you have to foreclose that buyer's interest.
Yep.
And that, in my town, takes up to a year and about $10,000 in legal fees.
Wow.
So to take the risk out of that, I sell the beneficial interest in the trust on an installment contract, not the real estate. Now, from a tax standpoint, from the IRS's viewpoint, that is a sale. And the buyer can deduct the interest and taxes just like any other contract sale. But from a legal standpoint, I'm selling them the beneficial interest in the land trust, which is personal property, not real estate. And therefore, if they default, I can repossess their interest. I do not have to foreclose. And that one idea alone, if the people watching and listening to this, if that's all they take away from this interview, that was of value for them to spend their time watching us, because that will save you an immense amount of time, legal fees, and lost sleep for when someone defaults. Because if you're going to be active in this business, it will happen to you eventually. And so that's a great way to do it. I do lease options as well with my tenants, and I follow the same philosophy. I don't give them an option to buy the real estate. I give them the option to buy the beneficial interest in the land trust for the same reasons.
Yep.
So those are 2 really good reasons. And there are, 50 some more reasons in that booklet. I encourage people to go to my website and download that.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, guys, go back and listen to what he just said a few times if you just weren't paying close attention, because if you're in a state where it's expensive and takes a long time to foreclose, I mean, what he just said is going to pay for a home state program 10, 15, 20 times over just on one house. I mean, so imagine what else is in there, because we're here in Texas. It doesn't take anywhere close to that time. I mean, I don't know what's going on up there in Chicago, but that's pretty ridiculous. But he's basically giving you a way to protect yourself from having that out-of-pocket cost plus all that headache. Now, a lot of people talk about the bankruptcy issue. They say that if your property is being held in a land trust, say you sold it on owner financing and you're going to have to go foreclose or whatever, normally it's a common scenario that they file Chapter 13 or something right at the last minute to stop the foreclosure. Can they do that if the house is in a land trust, or kind of break that down for everybody to understand that a little bit further?
Well, let's discuss these 2 methods. You're talking about if I own a piece of real estate in a land trust and I sell it on an installment contract?
Correct.
And the buyer defaults? Correct.
Yep.
Okay. If the buyer defaults, again, I'm going to repossess that interest. I'm not going to foreclose it. The buyer, whether we're using a trust or not using a trust, will be able to throw anything that he owns into that bankruptcy estate, it's called. And as such, they would be throwing in their contract to buy the beneficial interest in the real estate,
Okay.
They would not be throwing in the actual title to the real estate. And that's going to muck up the system. The judge isn't going to understand it. The attorneys aren't going to understand it. And probably what will happen is that the bankruptcy trustee, who's paid on a commission basis, will not deem much value there and look for other assets to satisfy the bankruptcy person's creditors, and more importantly to him, pay his commissions, because that's how bankruptcy works.
Yeah.
But if you just, let's say you buy your house and finance it through Bank of America, and then you, after closing, you put it into a land trust, and then you declare bankruptcy. The title is going to be in the name of the trustee of your land trust, but you are still going to be on the debt that you signed with Bank of America. You're going to be on the note and the personal guarantee that they made you sign. And you will be able to discharge that through bankruptcy if you include it. Now, some people, will reaffirm that debt because they don't want to lose their house. So it just depends on the situation.
Okay, great. So you touched on something there, talking about switching title into land trust after you close on it, which I think is important to elaborate on a little bit, because a lot of individuals, talking about land trust, they want to put their properties in land trust, but when they go to their bank tells them they won't basically finance it in the land trust name. So you're saying close on it in your LLC or your personal name, I guess, which is never smart, and then transfer it into a land trust afterwards. Are they going to, flag the due on sale clause, or is there any risk of them noticing this? Or
okay, let's take this step by step. First off, if you want to deal with the big boys, the Bank of America, Chase, Regions Bank, all those big guys, they got all kinds of rules to follow, and their loans are all going to be backed. They're government-backed loans, so they're going to have to meet the government guidelines, the underwriting guidelines, in order for them to make the loan to you. And part of those guidelines say that unless you're in Illinois, I know Bank of America will close 4 loans if you're in Illinois and the property's in Illinois, but that's an unusual situation. So 99% of the cases, you're not going to be able to close directly into the trust, which is the smartest way to buy real estate. So you're never in the chain of title. You're going to have to buy and close in your name. And then after the dust settles, you transfer out of your name and into your trust.
Okay.
Yes, technically that is a violation of the due on sale clause. However, from a practical standpoint, either the lender never finds out or they don't care as long as you keep making your payments. They've got enough problems with people that aren't making payments than to take a good loan and drive it bad because you changed the title. Yeah. There's no such thing as deed police. So there's nobody out there checking to see every day whether you change the title on your property or not. So chances are they won't ever know about it. You keep making your payments and life is wonderful. Now, you can only get so many government-backed loans. Bank of America will only let you have 4, and then you're done. So if you're active in this business and you want to buy your 5th or your 6th or your 7th property, you're going to be forced to deal with another type of a lender. And I call those lenders portfolio lenders because they keep their loans in-house, don't have to qualify under the secondary market guidelines, and therefore will let you close directly from the seller to your trust without you ever being in the chain of title. And that's the smartest way to do this. Once you get those 4 loans, some banks will go up to 10 loans, but once you get your maximum loans that are qualified with the government, then the smartest thing to do is deal with these regional banks.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I hear that commonly when I go around to some of the clubs and people talking about trusts. Another thing that I commonly hear being brought up is that somehow if you have your property in a land trust, that it's judgment proof, right? That your contractors can't go put a lien on the property or that they can't attach any judgment to it. What is your take on this? And is that, kind of pie in the sky stuff?
Okay, well, let's clarify it. It's kind of half true and half not true.
All right.
If you have your property into a trust and you hire to put a new roof on and you don't pay him, yes, he can put a lien against the property. But if you have your property in trust and let's say you are the beneficiary and you default on a loan at a bank or a personal loan or whatever it is, car loan, truck loan, you default, and they sue you in court and get a judgment against you, they cannot attach a lien against the property held in that trust.
Okay.
So there's the difference. You kind of think of it as an inside deal versus an outside deal. It might make it a little bit clearer to understand how that works. But that's one of the reasons why people use these trusts, is not to avoid their responsibilities. But we just went through a tremendous economic upheaval in this country, and there are a whole bunch of folks out there that are good people, but they've got liens and judgments against them because they lost their house or they lost their business, something happened, and they're trying to pay those liens and judgments off. And if they buy real estate in their name, immediately upon titling in their name, that lien or judgment will attach to the property. Whereas if they use a trust, it will not attach to the property, which gives them flexibility to do some flips and turns and contract assignments and make some money to pay those judgments off.
Yeah.
But at least they have control instead of somebody just lopping their head off as soon as they take title to the property.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? You think he knows something about land trusts? He's giving you some good information here. So you've been around doing this for quite a while. I'm sure you've had a couple instances where a land trust really helped you out in your personal business. Can you give us a good story or an example of a time that you basically used a land trust for your benefit?
Yeah, I could give you an hour's worth of stories, but let me give you the one with the largest dollar amount because it'll be the most impressive. 35 years ago, a friend of mine and I purchased a shopping center, and I insisted on putting it into a land trust. And in the year 2000, he moved out of my town in Illinois and he moved to Florida, and was a big time, very successful real estate investor. Made millions of dollars until 2008. And when the crash came, he started losing millions of dollars. And it's been almost 2 years now that I was sitting here at my computer like I am now, looking at the liens and judgments filed in my county, because I check those out on a weekly basis. And whose name pops up but my friend? A lien was filed in my county in Illinois. Now, he still lives in Florida, but a bank filed a lien in my county in Illinois against his name. So what are they doing? They're looking for assets. And they think, well, he used to live there. Maybe he still owns something. So we'll go up there and we'll file a memorandum of judgment against him for $3.2 million. Now, if I had not insisted on putting that shopping center in a trust, and we had owned it with my name and his name on the deed, I would have lost immediately all the equity in that shopping center for the last 35 years because of something he did. So please, 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 you real estate investors out there, this is a dangerous game we're playing. You need to be smart. You don't want to wake up 35 years from now after working your butt off to think you've got something and have it taken away from something that you didn't even do.
Yep.
So don't ever, ever, ever go on a deed with somebody else, and don't ever go on a deed by yourself, and you will live a much happier life and you'll sleep much better at night. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I've been in this business for 46 years now, and I've seen just about everything happen. So, if you want to lose a few $1 million, buy the stuff in your name. If you want to protect yourself, use the trust.
Yeah. And so if you have a property with someone that you, looking back now, maybe I shouldn't have bought that property, maybe now's the time to go put it in land trust, right? So, let's look at it yeah. And I'm sure if you buy his program, I know it's going to show you how to do that, because you want people to go do this on their own and file it on their own, or do you recommend them going to an attorney to do this, or do you do the service at your office for them if they contact you? Or
well, number one, I don't do it for people. I don't suggest that you do it for anybody else other than yourself without being an attorney. But you can do it for yourself. All you need is the knowledge and the forms, and that's what I provide in my home study course.
Yep.
It's not difficult to do. Once you read my course, which would probably take you a Saturday afternoon to do, you'll know more about land trusts than probably 99% of the lawyers in the United States. So once you have that knowledge, then you can craft your own trust agreement to make it as best for your situation as you can with that knowledge. And I provide all the forms you need, and you'll never pay another dime to create a land trust the rest of your life, because it doesn't cost anything to form a land trust like it does a corporation or an LLC. There's no cost to a land trust. LLCs in California are $800. In Illinois, they're $500 here. Some states are a lot cheaper, but and let me point something out here, Connor. I use LLCs. I love LLCs. I'm not telling people to only put their property into a land trust, especially investment property. I'm just saying title it in a land trust to get the privacy element of the land trust. Then most real estate investors will make the beneficiary of their land trust an LLC or a corporation to get more asset protection.
Yep. Okay, I guess one of the last questions I have for you is, how easily can the land trust be penetrated? Like, if you get some young hotshot attorney that's really out to get you, and he's like, I'm going to get this person, can he go through and kind of break it down and get to you, or is it basically a solid wall protecting yourself?
Well, it's not a solid wall. Of course, it depends on how you create the trust. Most of these trusts that we create are grantor revocable trusts, which means they can be changed. They're real flexible, and they are penetrable. If you create an irrevocable trust, it's more like a wall, and a revocable trust is more like a curtain. But most of the time, we're just creating these revocable grantor trusts. So let's deal with that, since that's the majority of the time. The first thing us real estate investors can do to protect our assets is to not own this stuff in our name. So just by not owning it in your name, or taking it out of your name now, so it's not in the title anymore, we'll stop a whole lot of frivolous lawsuits right away. But yes, if we're talking serious money, or some hot shot wants to penetrate the trust, they can, but it's not as easy as you might think. To sue a trust, you have to serve the trustee. And why is that? Because the trustee is the only person that the public knows about. That's the trustees on the title. Nobody knows who the beneficiary is. So you got to serve the trustee. You got to drag him into court, bend his thumbs back to get him to confess who's the beneficiary, because the trustee has no personal liability. The beneficiary does. So they're trying to get at the beneficiary. So they're going to have to initiate a lawsuit, have to go through the procedures. They're going to have to find the trustee. And I deal with a lot of this, of the asset protection techniques in my home study course. Because, for example, I live in Illinois. All my investment properties in Illinois, but I don't use Illinois land trusts. And no matter what state I lived in or invested in, I would not use that state's land trusts. So just imagine, let me just throw this out, because it's going to sound a little complicated, but it might serve a purpose in answering your question, Connor. If I've got investment property in Illinois that's titled in a land trust in Alaska, and the beneficiary is a Nevada LLC, you can see that now we've got 3 different states' laws in effect, which is a nightmare to deal with and to figure out. If your trustee and your trust that's formed, let's say your Alaska trust and trustee, you have a trustee in Alaska and the trust was formed in Alaska that owns real estate in Illinois, and the beneficiary is a Nevada LLC, the lawsuit against that trust should be jurisdictioned in Alaska, meaning you would have to go to Alaska to start that lawsuit. So, legal issues are very complicated, and they're not all cut and dried. But my point is, we don't make it easy. We are trying to defend ourselves against unscrupulous people that don't want to work hard like you and me and everybody watching this. They want to sue somebody to get rich.
Yep.
And there are a whole bunch of people in America that think that way right now. So we're not trying to avoid our responsibilities in life. We just don't want to have our hard-earned money taken away from us. So I teach a lot of structures like that. I get into some really cutting-edge stuff that I've developed over the last 2 years that nobody on planet Earth is doing with a land trust right now. So I encourage the people listening and watching, if you have any interest in this at all, I can take your hand and walk you through this. And I'll throw this out too. I actually answer my own phone. That sounds silly, but think about it. Who answers their phone anymore? Especially after you buy something from them, they never answer their phone. They want you to go to their website and spend 3 hours figuring out the answer to your question instead of just picking up the phone and saying, hey, Randy, here's my question. Thanks a lot. See you later. And I answer my phone 7 days a week for my students. I have what I formed 9 years ago, the Land Trust University, which is online education of this information. It's all really cool and cutting edge stuff, and I encourage people to take advantage of it.
Okay, great. Yeah, here in just a second, we'll let you give out all your information so that they can go there and check it out if they want. Quickly, one more thing I want to go over is the trustee, right? So if you're a new investor and you're going to put a house in a land trust, you're going to need a trustee, but this can be an awkward conversation. For one, you need to get educated enough to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, your trustee or potential trustee may be, a little worried because what you're just talking about, they could get drug into court, right? What is the risk for the trustee? Is there any risk? Can they get in trouble? What if they misrepresent something? Kind of so someone who's approaching a potential trustee can kind of let them know what they're in for, right?
Yeah, I actually wrote a little 2-page white page on it's a dear Mr. or Mrs. potential trustee. Why in the world would you want to do this? And then I list the reasons and encourage them to consider being a trustee. And I have make that accessible to my students so they can just print it out and hand it to somebody. But to answer your question, most of the time there's an incentive involved. So if it's a relative, let's say it's somebody that's going to end up inheriting your property when you die, they probably ought to have a little interest in keeping things protected, shouldn't they? So I think that's on an individual basis most of the time what happens. But I do have a lot of students that come to me and say, Randy, there's just nobody that I trust enough to be my trustee. What do I do? In that event, I refer them to professional trustees that are insured and bonded, and they, like I said, they'll charge a couple $100 a year, but that's no big deal, and they'll serve as your trustee.
Yep. I mean, you could probably also pay a friend or a family member X amount of dollars, and they'd probably be okay with that too.
Sure.
Yeah. So. Okay, guys, Randy, I appreciate you coming on here today, guys. I'm going to give him a chance to tell you how to get a hold of him. I highly recommend you getting his home study program. I bought it myself 3 years ago. We're not promoting this as an affiliate link. I'm just putting it out there for you because I think it's a good program, and there's not a lot of people teaching this out there. And just some of the things he showed you on today's video or today's podcast can save you tens of thousands of dollars just with what he was talking about if you're in a state where the foreclosure process is expensive and on a long time schedule, right? So let them know how they can get a hold of you and give them your website so they can go out there and start working with you.
Okay. First thing is, if you want to contact me, my email address is Randy, RANDY, at mrlandtrust.net. So that's Randy at mrlandtrust.net. If you want to go to my website and check out those 3 free booklets I talked about, my website address is land, LAND, trusts, TRUSTS, madesimple.com. That's land trusts with an S, madesimple.com. And at the website, you can get those booklets. On the left-hand sidebar, there's some links, and one of them says Shop Online. If you click on that, and then click on Create a Land Trust, you'll be at the page that has my home study courses. So that's Shop Online, and then click on Create a Land Trust, and you'll be there. Other than that, if you want to call me, my toll-free number is 1-866-696-7347. 866-696-7347. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate the opportunity to get that information out there.
Awesome, Randy. I'm grateful to have you on here today. Guys, go ahead and take a look below the video. We'll have the links on there on how to reach Randy. Also, he travels around and he goes to a lot of the major cities. I know he comes through Dallas here. A lot of y'all are in Dallas listening to this. Are you going to any stops here soon, or do you have a schedule on your website probably that shows where you're going to be? Because obviously, if he comes through town, guys, go meet him, right?
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity.
Hey, actually, yes, on that same website that I just gave, on that left-hand sidebar where those links are, there's a link that says Events Calendar, and you can find out where I'm going to be. I will be in the Dallas area in September. I think it's the third weekend in September, but check it out. This month, I'll be in Orange County, California. Next month in Dallas, South Carolina, New York City, Little Rock, Arkansas, Las Vegas, Nevada. So check it out. I'm going to be everywhere between now and the end of the year. And then actually I've got quite a few speeches on the website scheduled into next year as well. So hopefully I'll get to meet you all personally.
Mr. Land Trust, you're a hardworking man. I appreciate you coming on, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.